Welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast. BrightWord is a leading platform for diverse storytelling, where voices from all backgrounds can share their unique narratives and connect with readers from around the world. Follow our regular podcast updates, where we strive to foster a literary community that celebrates creativity, inclusivity, and the transformative power of literature.
Hello, and welcome to BrightWord Books Podcast, where stories connect and ideas resonate. I'm your host, Nancy Gregory. In this episode, author Tracy Emerick, former New Hampshire state representative and community leader, examines neighborly compassion through two iconic figures in Nifty Neighbors, Mr. Rogers and Jesus Christ. Imagine two of history's kindest souls sitting on your front porch, sharing timeless wisdom about what true neighborliness looks like. We'll explore how to turn everyday interactions into meaningful connections. Lead with compassion, whether at home, work, or in your community. And build bridges in a world that often feels divided. Ready to be inspired? Let's dive in with Tracy. Tracy, welcome and congratulations on your book.
Thank you, Nancy. Nice to be with you.
In your book, Nifty Neighbors, it focuses on two very influential figures, Mr. Rogers and Jesus Christ. What inspired you to write this book and draw comparisons between these two icons?
Well, I have a series of 4 books. All of them compare an earthly individual with Jesus Christ. The idea behind it is that I think the Christian churches aren't doing a very good job of connecting man with God. Basically, their attitude is you've got to go to their building and then you can find God, where in fact, God's with us all the time and we don't think about it. So I wrote these 4 books in order to try to get a connection between man's understanding of, or I should say humans' understanding of themselves and God within them. So they all have the same theme, it's just from a different perspective. This one happens to be 2 like individuals because Mr. Rogers spent 33 years of his life relating to children.
Yes.
And he became quite proficient at it. And to the point where I had young children during the era when he was on in the 80s and 90s up to 2000. And they would watch Sesame Street and all kinds of things going on and busy and characters and everything. And then Mr. Rogers would come on and he'd start in a suit and he'd go in and he'd put on a sweater and he'd take off his leather shoes and put sneakers on. And the song was going about being my neighbor in the background. So the kids just sat there and watched.
Yes.
You know, there was no hyper anything. He explained things. He talked about multiple topics. I mean, he had almost 900 episodes. And he talked about everything from friendship to empathy to death to divorce.
Mm-hmm.
He covered so many topics, but he covered it trying to help children understand. He didn't lecture, he just informed, and perpetually he came back to, you are perfect as you are. You don't have to change. And maybe there's things we need to understand together. And so his whole ministry, he was a Presbyterian minister after all, his whole ministry was to children. And, we can learn a lot of lessons from Mr.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I have to say, many times I would be sitting watching those 2, especially the episodes that had King Friday the 8th. I thought those
I remember that. Yes.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And the interesting part about his neighborhood is he started doing videos in film, I should say, at that time in the U.S. and he did something for Canada, and that really solidified Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. So from then on, he was, won't you be my neighborhood? I mean, that was his whole thing, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. And it went on, like I said, for 30 some years. So he was quite an individual, but he devoted his life to understanding children. And Jesus also, there's a certain passage where the disciples try to keep the kids away from Jesus.
Yeah.
And Jesus says, let the children come unto me. And so, and he also told the disciples, until you are like a child, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. So the childlike nature of us as adults and the child nature of children was very important to both of these individuals.
You discuss the importance of being a good neighbor in both personal and professional life. Why do you believe this is such an essential topic in today's world?
Well, the reason is people, we have a tendency to have different categories of our life. We have one life, which is called our work life. We have one life called our home life. And then we have one life called our spiritual life. And we seem to role play in each one of them. What we really need to do is have one persona that is the same in all of those spheres. But for some reason, we have segregated ourselves into these buckets that say, okay, you're at church, now it's time for your spirituality. You're at home, now it's time to be mom or dad or sister, brother, whatever. Now you're at work, it's time to be the pile driver or whatever you have as your job. So it's a shame, because the precepts, the love of human interaction is the same in all spheres. And so that's part of my message, is there is no such thing as spheres. There's you, and if you want to change the world out there, you got to change yourself.
Right.
Because we are the ones that do this segregation. The world doesn't do it. We do it to ourselves. And so part of the neighborhood is understanding that it's just one neighborhood. You're performing different functions, and you can change the functions you perform, but you really need to change your heart and your soul if you're going to change how you use love as a common denominator in all your relationships.
In this book, you highlight the traits and attitudes that make both Mr. Rogers and Jesus such an exemplary neighbors. Which of these characteristics do you think are most needed in today's society?
Oh boy, how long do we have?
I know.
No, I think the biggest one is understanding other people, listening to other people. You don't have to agree with them, but we seem to have gotten ourselves to a point where if somebody doesn't agree with us, we have a friction with them. They have a point of view, we have a point of view. The key element in both Jesus and in Mr. Rogers is they listened to people. And they didn't just listen with their ears, they listened with their eyes, they listened with their soul. They really paid attention and then responded according to how they felt about it, not according to what the quote rules are. Jesus spent a lot of time with Samaritan woman, which he wasn't supposed to be talking to, for one thing. He wasn't supposed to be alone with her, for another thing. And she was a multiple divorcee, which was a further problem. And he basically expressed his concern and love for her in order to get her to understand what he was trying to say. So part of that is him listening to her, and her in turn listening to him. And I think that's the biggest trait that I think we don't do
now. Yeah.
Part of it's just listening, and I'll use the word understanding. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we really need to understand. We need to try to understand. If people have totally different points of view, that understanding thing kind of hits it's up against a block in your own mind. So part of it is having empathy for somebody in their opinions, and then understanding can follow as you can increase your dialogue. But if we don't have empathy and we don't have love of our neighbor, we don't listen.
How can readers apply the lessons from Mr. Rogers and Jesus Christ to improve their own neighborhoods, whether that's at work or in their families or within their own communities?
Well, as I said I think part of it, you can apply it by learning to listen and not talk. We have a tendency to be thinking about what we're going to say when we're listening to people. And so we're ready to jump in with our next point or our next issue before they finish expressing what their issues are. So I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's really what can we apply from the book is that we need to learn to have the empathy, understanding, and basically love for other individuals. And so, when Jesus said, love your neighbor, he wasn't just talking about the Mr. Rogers neighborhood. He was talking about all people, your enemies, those you despise, those you fear, those that you don't trust. Jesus was the same for all people, and that's what he told us to be. Love your neighbor as yourself. And that's a two-edged sword, because you have to love yourself. And that's another area where we really need to pay attention to what their teachings are, because Mr. Rogers spent a long time telling children they had their own value. They were worth something as they are, just as Jesus told people that they had God within, and they could do whatever they put their mind to, so to speak, with their talents and skills. So, both of them have basically the same message. One was directed strictly at children, even though the adults could prosper from it. The other was directed at all people. So I think that's what we can learn, is be more Mr. Rogers-like. If you don't know what he's like, go on and look up some of his own episodes, or be Christ-like, and that, is a biblical chronology of how he was. So it's basically jump in the Bible and read some verses. I guess that's the best way to figure it out.
Nifty Neighbors is a call to action. Can you share a personal story or example where being a good neighbor made a real difference in your life?
Well, I'm very active in my church. And one of the things that we have been involved in over the years is helping people with food maintenance, 48 hours of hunger and different programs.
Right.
And part of for me personally was one year, my wife and I were involved in food distribution around Thanksgiving. It included turkeys and a bunch of other stuff. And a gentleman came in with he had 5 children. His wife had left him, and he felt alone. And actually, my wife was much more compassionate than me, because my job was to carry the stuff out to the car. She would check people in and dialogue and back and forth. And this gentleman was so appreciative, he cried. And that was one of those moments when you go, oh, holy mackerel, we're making a difference. Yeah. I'm looking at it as turkey and canned goods. And my wife is expressing love for him, and he's overwhelmed by the fact that somebody cares. So, the caring, I think, is part of this discussion. And if you just care for other people and their needs as best you can, I think you're making the right steps.
Now, as a retired business owner and former state representative, what was your writing process like for Nifty Neighbors? Was it an easy transition from your professional career to writing this kind of book?
No. No, writing was painful. And actually, once I got involved with a good editor, it made the writing part easier. Because an editor has their skills are to draw out, where are you going with this? What are you doing? Because the writing process oftentimes is a blank piece of paper. And so once you go from one chapter to the next chapter and you're trying to formulate a transition, so to speak, that's where professional editors, in my case, were very helpful, because my business background was kind of abrupt. You went from topic A, topic B, topic C. In a book, you kind of have to roll A, B, and C kind of together, so there's some continuity. And that was the thought process I had the biggest difficulty with, was developing that continuity of content. So the book's chapters would flow and make sense after all. So it wasn't easy. And I mean, I read books about writing books, and it's like reading books about how chocolate tastes. You don't really know till you do it.
And how do you describe that, right?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And so how long did it take you to write this book?
Well, the 4 books took me about 4.5 years.
Okay.
The first one came through, that was Steve Jobs and Jesus Christ, Extreme Entrepreneurs. That one came through, but then once you kind of had the model of God and man, or God and human, and the interaction, the others came a little bit easier because I knew where I was going with each one of the additional books. So they were easier. Plus, as I said, I got involved with a professional editor who really facilitated bringing them to conclusions.
Right. And you've spent many years involved in local politics and community efforts. How have those experiences shaped the ideas in your book and influenced the way you approach neighborly interactions?
Well, I spent 20 some years on my town's planning board, and many of those years as the chair. Like you said, I was a state rep for 10 years. And when you're involved in, like, being a state rep, when you're involved in legislating, which is kind of interesting, when you're a legislator, what do? You write stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you read stuff. So part of that is you're in an abstract world because the things you're reading and the bills that you're talking about are abstract because they concern people ultimately, but you're not dealing with the people. Unlike on the planning board, an applicant comes before the board with their project, and you're dealing with the developers. I mean, you're right there with the people. So it's a different world. In both worlds, you're doing something for somebody else, basically for free. In my state, a legislator for 2 years makes $200. So we could say it is a volunteer effort, but they're both very fulfilling. And part of it is my internal sense that I have to do stuff for other people. It's just part of what I've made up as. And so legislating was okay for 10 years, but it got to be, I've done enough of this. Planning board for 20 some years. Well, I've done that. I'm still on a couple of boards. I'm chairman of a youth services nonprofit that has been around for 20 some years, and they're helping youth, troubled youth. So I still find satisfaction in using the talents that I was given in order to help other people as best I can. And now that I'm retired, I have a little more time to reach out and spend time doing things. But at the same time, it's like, I got to slow down a little bit.
Enjoy the sunshine, right?
Right.
Yeah. The book provides so much food for thought, but do you hope it sparks action as well?
Well, I ask myself that all the time. People say, why did you write the books? And my answer is, I want to get the word out in a little different format. I want people to have an opportunity to find out that Jesus was a nice guy. Most of the personifications of Jesus, he's either hanging on a cross or he's portrayed as hellfire and brimstone. When in fact, he was the nicest guy around to everybody. So can my books prompt somebody to improve their nature? I would hope so. But it's the kind of thing, it's not going to manifest itself in some kind of a cult or a big uprising or an activity or anything. Right. It's going to be individual. So if God wants it to work, it'll work. That's my attitude, and I'll never know.
Is there a key takeaway you want readers to walk away with?
Uh, well, I think the key takeaway is if you have a chance to read the book, I think it'll help you understand one individual, Mr. Rogers, who, like I said, spent 33 years developing relationships and understanding among children, but also Jesus and his outreach. So, and you can do that without reading the book. All the book does is kind of set a foundation down to say, here's some things you might want to try, like we said earlier, like listening.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think it's going to be earth-shattering in the macro sense, but I think in the micro sense, hopefully it can be earth-shattering for an individual.
Absolutely. And as someone who has been involved in both business and community service for many years, how do you think society's view of kindness and neighborliness has evolved, and where do you hope it's headed?
Well, I think the concept of kindliness and neighborliness is something that those have the ability to share with others, and the others are the ones that are interested in partaking. Because there's a whole realm of individuals who look at hierarchies of some kind. I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, I'm more educated than you. Uh, but that's not helping other people. That's being a braggart. What my hope is that people can share themselves with other people and improve the other people, help the other people. You by being kind and helping other people, you're changing their life, and hopefully you're changing your own. Because when you do things for other people, you get a lot of gratitude out of that. And it's gratitude that can be said or unsaid, but it makes you feel better about yourself. So part of loving yourself is saying, what can I do to help other people so I'll love myself a little more? So
Absolutely.
it's a very interesting loop.
Yeah. How do you balance the message of being a good neighbor with the challenges and complexities of modern life, especially with, how fast-paced and often disconnected things can feel these days?
Well, one of the things I've started doing more is acknowledging people in the supermarket, saying, how are you today? And nodding, and little tiny things like recognizing somebody else as an individual is a big deal, because we have a tendency to walk by people with a blank stare, not looking left or right, not paying any attention to them, but just smiling at somebody
Yeah.
can make a big difference. So it's not monumental things. I mean, it's not saving the world or saving your neighborhood in that sense. It's the thousand little things that help you be more accommodating to other people.
Just acknowledging someone, like just acknowledging that they're there. Sometimes I always share with my son, like that might be the only smile somebody got all day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or waving at somebody. I find myself now waving at all kinds of little kids.
Yeah.
When they're riding along in the baskets with their mothers in the supermarket and you wave to them and they look at you very strange and then they smile and they kind of wave back because they're not really sure who you are. But you're right. I mean, it's reaching out to other people in some way. But you can't be too overt about it because today everybody's nervous
Yeah.
that if you come on to me too strong, you're trying to get something or do something. So you have to be aware of, physical distances, comments. You just have to be aware of being a nice person and doing something pleasant. And if you can't do that, don't try, because a fake pleasantry is worse than no pleasantry at all.
Are there any specific anecdotes or stories from your own personal life that helped shape the messages in Nifty Neighbors?
Uh, well, I think part of it is this is more of a global response. I have a son who was fascinated by Mr. Rogers, and he has grown up to be one of the nicest, caring individuals I know. And so part of that, I'm sure, was his home life. I like to think, but I also think us sitting watching Mr. Rogers and talking about different issues for years had some effect on him. But it's like he's a product of that era, and I'm happy that I participated in it with him. So, you really see how well you did when you start seeing your children's children. And he has 3 girls that are delightful. So it's like, something went right.
Absolutely. Do you have plans for any future books or projects?
I don't think so. I've started doing, podcasts. I've converting the books into scripts for video. But I don't know that I have another book. I've been encouraged by many people. All of your books are about men. Can you write a book that has to do with a woman in Jesus? And I thought about it, and I probably could, but I'm still trying to find that character, so to speak, that motivates me to say, "Oh, that's it. But I think part of that is my common sense of suppressing the desire to write another book because it is so much work.
Yes.
I don't know if I want to do it anymore.
Yeah. Well, you have how many now? 4?
4. Yeah.
4.
Well, I wrote a business book back in the 80s because at that time I wrote a book called Business to Business Direct Marketing because I was in the direct marketing business to business world and there was no text on the topic. And I updated that in 1999, but then the whole concept of database marketing got overwhelmed by the internet, which is massive internet marketing, massive database marketing. So it's like, well, there's enough books on that topic. It's time to move on. But the idea of writing another book right now, I'm going to be 78 this month, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, you have 4. Now, if you could give one piece of advice to readers about how they can improve their own relationships with their neighbors, whether literal or figuratively, what would it be?
Well, I think it would be, as I said earlier, listen to what they have to say, reach out in a positive mode, even if you don't agree with what they say, and figure out how do you change yourself in order that they will act differently to you. Because we want everybody else to change, but we don't want ourselves to change. And I think part of the vision for loving yourself is you have to love yourself enough to change some of your habits in order to communicate with other people.
Tracy Emerick, thank you for sharing these insights from Nifty Neighbors, Mr. Rogers, and Jesus Christ. Your examination of community building through these 2 figures offers valuable perspective on everyday compassion. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And for our listeners, Tracy's book is available at major retailers, including Amazon. Learn more about his work at tracyemerick.com. That's tracyemerick.com. Thanks for joining us on the BrightWord Books podcast. And as always, keep turning the pages and discovering the magic of books.
You've been listening to the BrightWord Books Podcast, home of the literary community that celebrates creativity, inclusivity, and the transformative power of literature. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss future episodes. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.